The thing about focusing on shortcuts and hacks is that you end up focusing on how quickly you can finish your book's milestones instead of setting your book up for success. The tools that you choose and the self-editing process exist not just to save you money, but also to make sure that your reader sees the best possible version of your book. So why are you skipping steps? Hello, Shameless Writers. I'm Kristen McTiernan, the nonsense-free editor here for your, we're going to go with monthly dose of writing, publishing, and productivity expertise. Today's video is all about setting you up with the right tools to make sure that your book, regardless of its genre, if you're doing an info product for your business, whether you're doing a novel that's set in a high fantasy world, or whether you're doing my specialty, a memoir, you want to make sure that that book is done quickly, efficiently, and most importantly, in a way that makes sure that the best possible version of it goes out to your readers. If you spent any amount of time on YouTube watching writing or publishing videos, you're probably feeling really overwhelmed. You're thinking, there are so many steps. Even if I go with a traditional publisher, it's still going to be so many steps, and it's going to take so long, and I don't know what to do, and I don't know where to start. And then you end up being like a lot of writers who call themselves writers, except they never actually write because it's so overwhelming that they don't even know where to start. Which is how we come to the very first thing that we're going to talk about, and something that I am becoming increasingly passionate about, and that is using the right tools. And by tools, I mean programs. We all love those Instagram pictures or those Pinterest boards where it shows someone sitting with a beautiful notebook and have this really great handwriting. And we imagine that that's what writing a book is. But unless you are Amish, that is probably not the case. You are using a computer or some kind of internet-connected device, and that is how you are writing. And so the right tools will set you up for success before you even start. Obviously, the first tool that you will need is a word processor, and me being a PC girly, I am going to recommend Microsoft Word. I obviously know that the Mac people are hissing and arching their back right now. So, we're also going to talk about Google Docs and Scrivener. This is not an in-depth video. I am not going to be going step by step with how to use these programs. I'm merely going to be talking about the types of programs that you will need to set yourself up for success, give you specific examples of what I believe the best options to be based on my years as a writer and as an editor. And then I'm just going to leave it to you to decide what you need to set yourself up for success and which specific program would be easiest and best for you. For word processors, Google Docs is free. That is a big selling point for a lot of people, especially if you plan to go the independently published route. That means that you're going to be shelling out a lot of money at every phase of your publishing journey. Fair enough. I like Google Docs because it has sharing functions and collaboration functions that, I'm just going to say this to you, I love Microsoft Word, but if you are into collaboration and just sharing easy links for people to dive in and out of your document and give you feedback, Microsoft Word is not for you. Okay. Technically you can share it, but they have to log into their Microsoft account. They have to have the type of subscription that, warrants using the app. It's like they don't want normal people to use the app. They just don't. They're like, no, if you're not in Office, you don't get Microsoft Word. Now, I love it because I have the Microsoft Office suite and I rely on it. So if you already have access to Microsoft Word and you don't need a lot of collaboration, that's still my first choice. For fiction writers specifically, I also recommend Scrivener, but only, and this is a big one because Scrivener does cost money and it does kind of have a steep learning curve. If you're using multiple POV characters, if you are telling a non-linear story, or if your book is just very long and there's a lot of different scenes and there's a lot going on and just writing in one document might not be the easiest for you, Scrivener is an excellent choice. I have all three of these documents and I use all three of them for different things. I use Scrivener for my no longer really in progress time travel novel. It's still in progress. I'm kind of in a pause right now. But I do use Scrivener for that because there's multiple POV characters. We go back and forth in time. There's multiple different settings. I need Scrivener for that. Word's just not going to cut it. But for most of my other fiction, and of course, obviously my professional documents, I use Word almost exclusively. Google Docs is great for anything that I need collaboration or a lot of cutting and pasting between applications. So I use all three, highly recommend all three. The next thing you need, yes, need, if you are a fiction writer, is a storytelling assistant. Now, what is a storytelling tool? So not everybody is a person who plots their plot in advance. This is true, and I don't want to take away from intuitive writers or pantsers. But having a storytelling tool, even to use after the fact, after your first draft is done, to make sure that you're hitting the appropriate beats in the plot that you have constructed just off the cuff, is important, which is why my first recommendation is Plottr. Plottr is a fantastic tool, and what it does is it allows you to construct your plot line, and it highlights the specific beats that your story should take. Now, the best thing about it, as I was playing around with it, is it gives you so many different options for the exact type of plot structure you would like to use. Do you want to use Save the Cat? Do you want to use Libby Hawker's Take Off Your Pants, which is my favorite? Do you want to use the Simple Hero's Journey? Do you want to use the 3-act plot? Do you want to use the 4-act plot? They have so many. They have ones that I haven't even heard of. They also allow you to import projects from Scrivener, and apparently the Snowflake method, like they have their own software or website or something, and they allow you to import from there as well, which is something I learned. So it's very, very helpful if you are a plotter to do that plotting work up front. And if you are a pantser, it's important that after you're done with your draft, you go in and make sure that you have hit those appropriate beats so you know that you've told a good story before you send it to your developmental editor. This will save you money. Next on the list is Selfeditor. There are a lot of programs that do this, but the two big ones, and I've talked about them before, are Grammarly and ProWritingAid. I used to be a full-blown Grammarly girl because it did everything that I needed. I didn't need like the big, suggestions. Well, perhaps you should rephrase this sentence because it will make it less passive. Like I never needed that stuff. I only needed the correction aspect of it. But then they updated their interface, and now I hate Grammarly. I hate it. It does not suit me. I'm still recommending it to some because some people do like the interface that it has. For me, it's just an aesthetic issue. I don't like it. The functionality is still solid. That has not decreased. I have switched over to ProWritingAid. Like I said, I work exclusively in Word. I don't really work in the browser very much. I don't work very much in Google Docs. So what the program looks like in Microsoft Word is premier for me. And for me, the ProWritingAid add-on, it's what I need. And it's so great. And now I think ProWritingAid does have a free offering. I would highly recommend if you go with ProWritingAid, you should get the premium version. If you go with Grammarly, in my opinion, the free version is good. The only upsell that you get for my purposes for Grammarly is the plagiarism checker, which is very helpful and is very useful, especially if you're doing academic work. I do recommend get the paid Grammarly feature so you can take advantage of that because it is very useful. Next on the list, AI tools. Before anybody chimes in about how AI is evil, I have made it very clear what I think about AI religious extremists. Yeah, my opinion has not changed. So if that's what you came here to say, don't. In terms of using an AI assistant for writers, there are two categories of AI usage that I recommend. The first is an AI assistant. This is a brainstorming buddy. This is someone who helps you organize your thoughts, maybe someone who takes your ideas and gives you suggestions. For this AI assistant role with the brainstorming and the kind of polishing the ideas you already have, I cannot more highly recommend Claude. I love Claude. And yes, I am using the paid version of this. It is wonderful. For instance, I'm going to throw this up on the screen. If you follow me over on Substack, you know that I am rewriting one of my fiction books, the most recent one, actually, because when it was done, I hated it because it was rushed. I hate that book so much. So I'm rewriting it. But I needed help. It's like, okay, how do I rewrite this? How do I make it better? How do I make it less sucky and embarrassing? And I asked Claude, and this is what it came up with. Minor spoilers, sorry, but the book has been out for a while. So this is what it gave me. You guys, yes. Now, obviously, some of the ideas it spat out really wouldn't work with the world as I had constructed it. Some of it was overly sappy because I'm not writing a romance, I'm writing a romantic suspense. So, it's a little bit different. But the ideas were fantastic. Now, I do have a community of writers that I talk to. And so I went into my little group of writers and I put that up on our Slack. And I was like, hey, tell me what you think. Because they've all read it. They critiqued it in real time as I was writing it. The first half, not the second half, which is why it was sucky when it went out the door. And so I had it checked by human eyes. The thing about using an AI assistant, you always want to have that human gut check. Does this sound good? Does this sound right for the genre? Does this sound, logical? Because never forget, this is important, AI sometimes hallucinates. And this is especially true if you're working in nonfiction. So don't just take the AI's word for it, but it is very helpful and it can get you out of a rut. Claude is my recommendation. If you are using, and this is the controversial part, if you are using generative AI, that is, you are having AI write your first draft for you or parts of your first draft, then I would recommend Sudowrite for fiction writers. The reason I recommend Sudowrite is because they do have that story Bible feature where it takes you step by step from a brain dump to an outline to a character listing and every step. And so you're able, and again, just very much like Plottr, you're able to choose what kind of plot outline you want. Are you doing a romance? Are you doing, the 3-act structure? Are you doing the snowflake? It lets you choose. It also lets you choose what LLM model you want. So if you wanted to use the Claude LLM, you could, or you could use the ChatGPT LLM. So it allows you that flexibility. And then you go chapter by chapter and it writes it for you. My final addendum, as it always is, what the AI spits out just in its first form will never be published. Well, I don't want to say never. I'm not psychic, but right now it is not publish worthy. It's not good. It is soulless. So if you're using generative AI, including for nonfiction, by the way, this is still true for nonfiction, this is just a first draft. This is just to remove the stress of the blank page. You're going to need to work on it more before it's even ready for your editor, okay? However, I am not against using generative AI if you want to see what a first draft would look like, if you want to play around with different outlines. I love that the Sudowrite was like, oh yeah, this is what a romance outline looks like, because I don't write romance. And just being able to look at that and generate, a fake plot. It's like, oh, here we go. That helps me while I'm editing my client's romance. Oh, I see what you're doing. Okay, because it has to fall, the kiss has to fall here. And wow, amazing. And especially with the alternating first-person POVs, which is so popular now. It's a very helpful tool if you're switching to a new genre or if you just need help getting started with your first draft. But again, it is only a first draft. Don't you send that pure AI nonsense to your editor. It will cost you so much money, you guys. And now that we've talked about tools and how they can save you time and money, now I want to shift over to specifically what will save you money as a writer. And the first thing, I wouldn't be the nonsense-free editor if I didn't mention this. The best way to save money, especially if you're a self-published author, is to use those programs to engage in self-editing your manuscript once it is in a good enough place for you to say, okay, I'm done writing. The draft is done, whether it's your second draft, your third draft. Okay, I'm in a good place. But you're not in a good place to send it to an editor just yet. And I like to remind people of this, is that there's no point in having ProWritingAid or having Grammarly or the Microsoft Word dictation feature to read your book back to you if you're not actually going to engage in a self-edit. The reason a lot of authors don't do this is because they think, well, I'm paying my editor for this. They're better at this than me. And they are. We are. Yes, that is accurate. That is why you are paying us money. But what I want to impress upon you is that your editor will quote you a price that is based on how many words are in your manuscript. The big financial boost that you get from self-editing is because after you let your manuscript sit for a little bit, some people say like a month or something outrageous like that. I say usually a week is enough, especially if you go on to read a book in between or something like that. You will see things that you didn't when you were in it. If you have the time, maybe let it rest for longer, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, if you have the time. Not everybody does, and I hear you. But that self-editing is going to allow you to go through and cut. Okay, everybody cuts. Everybody does. And if you can cut 1,000 words, this is especially true if you have a lot of POV characters or a lot of supporting characters. If you have a big cast, A lot of times this self-editing step will save you money because you'll be cutting unnecessary scenes and sometimes full characters. The first pass is always about your content and your structure. That's where the majority of the cutting is. The second pass that you should take would be character consistency. Do you have a scene where a character that you definitely need kind of acts out of character and also doesn't add anything to the plot? Maybe that scene can go. And then the final pass is just kind of doing your own grammar and punctuation. It's not super impressive, but some authors get embarrassed if I end up finding a lot of commas or if I end up finding an N dash when it should have been an M dash. I don't know. But that should be the final pass. I also recommend that your editor should not be the second person after you to have seen your manuscript. We don't all have communities. We don't all. But especially with this online landscape, you can find critique groups online. Or if you want to spend a little bit of money on it, you can find beta readers who will go through and give you a nice, thorough critique. These are not editors. They're just reading it from a reader's point of view. But their feedback is invaluable. So if you can avoid it, let your editor not be the only other person besides you who's seen your manuscript. If you're struggling on what to do with the self-editing phase, I included a link in the description to my free ebook, 5-Star Book Editing, and it kind of gives you a full-blown list. Here's what you need to do for self-editing. Here's the steps that you need to take. Here are some common mistakes that people make that you can fix on your own. Here's how to decide what to cut. And then it also has a section for when it comes time to hire a pro, what you should expect to pay, and how to find someone who is exactly right for you. No, it's not always going to be me. More's the pity. Now, in this final part today, I really want to impress upon you the common mistakes to avoid when you're selecting tools and when you're going back and forth between them to construct and polish your book. The first, the over-reliance on the automated tools. I've already talked about not letting a first draft AI slop draft out the door, so I won't press on that anymore. But if you over-rely, for instance, if Word tells you that, oh, this is grammatically incorrect, or even grammarly, is it? Maybe. Sometimes these automated tools can actually impel you to introduce error. Don't get so invested in these tools, even though they help you, that you forget that the ultimate judge, the ultimate arbiter of your book is going to be your human readers. Another common mistake is skipping crucial editing stages. Now, in the free ebook that I linked below, I do mention that I understand that not everybody has the kind of budget where they can do, 7 stages of editing in traditional publishing. It is insane. Oh my God, it's so much. Not everybody can do that. And frankly, most people shouldn't do that. So this is not a pitch to spend $80,000 on editing. That's nonsense. So you need to look at your budget and it's like, okay, well, I am a first-time author. What do I need? What can I afford? And so I do kind of break it down. All right, if you can't afford a full developmental edit and a separate line edit and a separate proofread, and you're, a medium experienced author, here are the steps that are your bare minimum. So I do want to be cognizant of the fact that not everybody has an unlimited budget. Actually, most of us don't. But don't skip what's important. You need to make sure that you have humans who have the requisite skills and experience, even if that's just as a prolific reader in your genre, tell you how your story works. How do your characters work together? And then you do need those mechanics. Never forget that there are book reviewers who will give you an excoriating 1-star review for a single typo. These people are the devil, but they do exist. So mechanics matter, unless you're publishing on Wattpad, and I've heard tell that mechanics don't matter over there. But if you're actually publishing a book, the mechanics do matter, the story definitely matters, and your characters matter so much because that's who your reader connects to. So don't skip those steps. And the last one I want to harp on is poor file management, specifically your backups. I had something akin to a stroke while I was on Twitter, and a lovely young lady whose work I have read, not as a client, just on my own reading time, was wailing because she lost a completed draft. And I'm thinking, how? How did you lose it? It backs up to the cloud, right? No, not for her. You know why? Because she's like one of the people commenting on my Kobo video, like, oh, well, you shouldn't be connected to the internet at all. Haven't you ever heard of Linux? Yeah, So if it's saved to your hard drive and nowhere else, what happens if your hard drive takes a dump, Jerry? It means you lose years of work. Now, I'm a 90s girl and my dad built his own PCs, okay? So no one knows the horror of writing a full-fledged 15,000 word X-Men fan fiction that's set during the Magneto Headmaster days and having dad wipe the hard drive. I am not okay. I'm not okay. I'm not okay. 35 years later, I am not okay. Never forgive you, Dad. Always back up your work if you don't want to be connected to Microsoft OneDrive, and if you don't want to use, what is that one? Dropbox. I've heard a lot of glitchy stories about Dropbox, so I hear you, but there are a lot of third-party cloud backup. Many of them are designed specifically for security. Never, ever, ever trust that your file that is saved in one and only one location will be fine, because sometimes computers have bad things happen to them. And as far as the rest of your file management, make sure you label your various drafts very specific names. Because if you're querying agents and you send version 4 of your manuscript when actually the most recent is version 6, you're going to be posting sad things on Twitter too. So that's all I have for our tools and techniques to save writers money today. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. And I would also love it for those of you who have been enjoying my weirdly successful rant about the about the Kobo color. I would love it if you would subscribe to me and turn on notifications. I promise I am a delight. And if you are a writer at the beginning of your journey, I would love it if you would download my free ebook linked below. And that's all I have for today. So until next time, take care and write well.